Hello, and welcome to The Ordinary Extraordinary, the show for ordinary people and their extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Jen Krensman, and with us today we have Ken Carberry. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So today the plan is we're going to talk about just your life and career and family life so far. So why don't we get started? So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Milton, Massachusetts, just a few minutes away from here. I spent most of my life there, and I was educated in high school at Severian Brothers High School in Westwood, and then Curry College undergrad.
Curry College. I know that college.
Yeah, so I went there for communications, where I learned radio, audio production, and spent a career in that field, in radio and audio. But I also, at Curry, got turned on to law through some politics and history classes, and I went to law school then at New England School of Law in Boston following Curry. So I had this weird career of being a lawyer and a broadcaster at the same time.
That's very, I don't know where that really intersects. Was there something in particular about law that interested you?
I was fascinated by it and still am. And so I went nights while I was a DJ on the radio in Boston. I went during the day, and I went nights to law school.
Where did you DJ?
On radio station in Boston, WBOS, which is 92.9, which still exists. Another station which no longer exists, WSSH. One of them was a soft rock station, the other was more of a hard rock station, so yeah.
Did you prefer like the talking segment, or do you just prefer like the music?
No,
and
I wanted to
that
talk.
Kind of stuff?
In those days, what happened, the reason I left on-air DJing was really because in the 80s and into the 90s, it became more music and less talk. That's not why I got into radio. So I wanted more talk, less music. They didn't want me. So that's why I went into mostly production. I started my own production company, Chart Productions, which I still am running today, along with my Curry classmate, Jordan Rich, who was at WRKO and now WBZ. So we put together a production company where we did voiceover work, a lot of audio production, and audio books and podcasts and radio programs. And so we've been doing that for 40 years. Wow,
and that's still going, and you're still thriving in that?
Still doing that, right.
That's incredible.
While I'm teaching at Curry College, so that's just a fast story of my career. About 5 years ago, I'd been teaching at Curry for about 12 years, just one course a semester because I went there, and I taught some radio courses. When the then director decided to retire pretty quickly, just as COVID was starting, I got a call and they said, hey, we have nobody else. That's why they picked me.
God.
We have nobody else. No, they thought since I had been teaching some courses there, they wanted to know if I would be interested in being the director of the radio and audio program. And I thought it sounded like fun as I was getting older to have another job. So I took that on about 5 years ago. I've been doing that now at Curry College in Milton as director of radio and audio.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, to everybody out there, that's where I know him. I went to Curry College. This is where I met Ken Carberry here. And it's so cool that you're teaching there, and you also went to college there.
Right. I have the degree, the communications degree that I now work in that department. So I think it gives me a kind of a nice view of what the students are going through and what the classes we should teach and how students receive some of those classes. It was a long time ago, but many of the classes are still basically the same, some of the introductory classes. Obviously, some of the technical things have changed, but in terms of announcing or voiceover work, that really hasn't changed much. And in terms of introduction to the industry, that hasn't changed a lot. So we do kind of a history as well of broadcasting. So we like the students to leave with a good feel for radio and TV and online broadcasting that they can take to places like this or radio TV stations or work on TikTok or YouTube or wherever they can put together some programming.
What interested you in radio in the first place?
I was born into it. My dad was a DJ on the radio, so most people don't have that. I had that, so I figured I'd take advantage of that. My dad was on the radio, and so I grew up listening to him on the radio. And he then later on went into management and ownership, but he was on the radio when I was young through the 60s. So I'm an old guy. Yeah. So just so we know, I'm old. I remember radio in the 60s. So my dad was on the air. So I just thought, well, that sounds like a fun way to make a living, to be on the radio, play music, and have fun and get paid for it. And it really is. I mean, it's no heavy lifting. It's a pretty fun way to make a living. So I've been able to have a good career in that industry.
And back to Curry, what kind of courses do you teach?
Well, I teach an introduction to broadcasting, which I get a lot of first-year students in that. It just covers the area of broadcasting, both historically and also brings it up to today, radio, TV, and some internet and podcasting. So it's just a survey course, if you will, for folks who think they might be interested in broadcasting. So
Sure.
that's a fun course. I teach an audio production course, which is mostly all digital, of course, editing that we do and on software. So I teach students how to do that. I also teach, and of course, because I'm a lawyer, I teach a media law class, which is a nice combination of my education and skill set. So that's usually by juniors or seniors they take that class. But it's a good course. We deal with a lot of First Amendment issues, and we talk about freedom of the press and the like. And so it really is what you can and can't get away with on radio or TV, those kind of things. So that's a fun course. I think, again, everybody in radio or TV should take that course, I think, if they're interested in radio or TV or podcasting. I teach an announcing course, which is called Announcing for Broadcast and Podcast. It's pretty much the same course that I had 40 years ago. We just added the podcast word to make it sound up to date, but announcing is announcing. So I teach that. And then I teach a radio management course, radio TV station management course as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a harder hitting question, but with all the newer technologies and the streaming apps and stuff like that, is there a reason that people should still listen to the radio?
I hope so, yes. No, it's a good question. Right now, AM/FM radio is still very, very strong. We still have millions of people in this market, for instance, listen to AM/FM radio. For instance, the number one station in the Boston market is, what do you think? What kind of format would it be, if you had to take a guess?
Pop music,
You'd think so,
radio?
wouldn't you? No, it's talk. It's sports talk. That's the number one, by far the number one station. Now, there are two sports talk stations in Boston, and they both do very well, but one of them does very well as the number one station in the market. The idea that music may be moving more towards streaming and the like, right? But talk, news, sports, politics, that sort of talk works great on AM/FM radio because it's immediate.
Yeah,
you can talk to everybody right away. There's no delay. Also, if you're listening to a sports game on radio or TV, these are live events that you can't fast forward through the commercials. You watch it live. So I think what I train my students for now, as radio and TV are shifting, is more towards that kind of live performance, sports and news, because that's an area that people will still tune to if they want to know if something happens in the world. You flick on the news, and if there's going to be a snowstorm tomorrow in Boston, you turn on channel 4 or 5 or 7. You want to hear what the local weather forecaster has to say about the storm. So those type of events still get a lot of viewers. So I think we're going through a transition, but there's still a lot of folks who listen to traditional broadcasting. And then the other part of it is a lot of the streaming is run by radio companies.
How is it?
iHeartRadio, which owns most of the radio stations in the country, is also the number one streamer in the country and the number one podcast distributor in the country. So they're a radio company. So podcasting really is just radio on the internet.
Sure.
So the skill sets we give our students at Curry are used for that kind of work as well.
Oh, wow. I really didn't know how still involved, I guess, it all was.
It's all the same. And as a matter of fact, when you listen to, even if you listen to streaming music stations, one of the like Pandora or some of the others, they're programmed by radio programmers, people with experience programming radio stations. They use an algorithm, of course, but human beings create that algorithm by discussing things like what age range they're trying to reach. So, music, for the most part, people listen to music based on their age. So if you know when I grew up and where I grew up, you could probably guess what kind of music I listen to. What kind of music do you think I would listen to if I turned on a radio station or a streaming station?
Are you actually asking?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Because, you're a student and I'm the teacher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fair question.
What do you think?
I don't know. I grew up in Milton, Massachusetts.
In the 60s and 70s.
You're listening to music?
Yeah.
That was the question?
Yeah. So if I'm going to listen today to music, what type of music would I listen to?
I would guess probably music from anywhere from probably the 80s, I'm guessing, soft rock.
More 70s, 70s into 80s. Basically, we tend to listen to the music that we listened to when we were in high school and college.
Sure.
For me, that's the 70s. So I would listen to classic rock. And if somebody were to guess, a guy my age, that say probably listens to sports radio or classic rock, and I do. So I fit the demographic perfectly. So that's what we do in radio. We decide what demographic we want to reach in advertising, and then we decide what they probably want to hear. So you would listen to different music because you grew up at a different time in a different place. So that's how radio and streaming works in terms of reaching the audience, because that's what we're trying to do. It's really all built around advertising. It's built around who wants to buy the ads to reach you. And then we do the programming aimed at that group so that we can make the advertising dollars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's why broadcasting is still going to be viable for a long time. And as it transitions more into internet, it'll still be radio, if you will, but just on the internet.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Yeah, because people need content.
Sure,
the internet
of course.
needs more content, and so
Always.
that's where they go. They go to the radio people, they go to the TV people. They say, we need content for our YouTube or for our podcast. And the radio and TV people are the ones who provide that.
Yeah. And you mentioned the sports radio aspect, and you worked for the Red Sox in some fashion.
Yeah.
Talk about
I did.
that.
No, that's right. Yeah. You know, it's a fun business. You know, again, it's really a fun business. But I was lucky enough to work for the Red Sox for many years. I started out helping out doing their public address announcing way back, 1979, while I was a junior at Curry College. I had been working for a radio station where the then full-time public address announcer had been working. And he got sick and actually had open heart surgery, had bypass surgery. He needed to miss a few months at the beginning of the season. So he called the Red Sox and said, hey, there's this young guy I know who works with me at this radio station. He can fill in for me for a couple of months until I come back. And it was very nice of him because he gave me a job, but also he was looking to protect. He knew that I wasn't going to replace him.
Sure.
He didn't want somebody to step in and replace him. He wanted the job back when he got out. So he said, oh, this kid won't steal my job. And I didn't steal it. But the Red Sox liked the job I did as public address announcer, and then kept me as the backup to work with this other gentleman, and then ended up, I controlled the audio and the video of the scoreboards. I did that for about 10 years at Fenway, yeah.
Oh my.
Years, yeah.
What year range was this thereabouts?
From 79 to 89 or 90 or so when I got out of law school.
Okay.
But then I started something else because I've been working at the Red Sox, and in those days they built some additional booths, and they had a booth built that for broadcasting that they were hoping would be used someday for Spanish language broadcasting. So I put together a company that did that. I began the first Spanish language broadcasting at the Red Sox, and I hired announcers and got radio stations and brought in the sponsors, and we broadcast the Red Sox games in Spanish. I did that until they sold the team, basically. They got rid of my contract when they sold the team, so that was 2001 or so. So I did that. I ran a company that did that too.
In 2001, just right before?
Yeah, well, you know, that's when they sold the team. Maybe it was 02 they sold the team. Yeah. So they were getting rid of the old contracts. But I did that for about 12, 13 years, running the Spanish language Red Sox. Yeah, that was a fun job.
You speak Spanish
I
yourself?
spoke it better then. My Spanish is definitely a lot rusty now. It was better then. But I didn't do the announcing, but I hired the announcers and got this.
Oh, gotcha.
But I did have some Spanish. I was pretty good with my Spanish then, so it helped a little bit in terms of writing the ads and doing some of the business with the clients. But it was a fun job, and there's somebody still doing it. They still have a Spanish language broadcast. Right now it's just done, I think, on the second language part of the broadcast is on Ness, and they carry the Red Sox games, and you can push the SAP button and hear it in Spanish. Back then, we also had it on radio. I don't think they do that anymore, but it was a fun job, and it was a lot of fun during a time when the Red Sox were doing pretty well, but they still hadn't won the World Series. I know it. I get out a little too early. Oh well.
So, you went from Red Sox. You started your own company. You had mentioned this, Chart Productions, doing all this big, various fields of work. What do you like about that job?
Well, I am a bit of an audio geek. So truthfully, although I enjoy being on the radio and speaking and doing voiceover work, and I love teaching, my happy place is in a studio mixing. Alone, with the speakers up loud. So that's what I enjoy doing. So that's really, and I've done that my whole life. I built a studio when I was 12, and did recording and mixing back then, all analog, of course, on tape. But yeah, that's really, I enjoy that. So it's something that as long as I can do it and do some voiceover work and then mixing and editing and producing something out of nothing, yeah, that's fun to me. I would do it for free, but don't tell anybody because I charge them for it.
Voiceover work.
Yeah.
Have you done any gigs that we might know of?
Not a lot lately. I did, again, the 80s and 90s. The business has changed a lot, voiceover work, especially because since we've gone digital. Back in the good old days, voiceover work was more regional and local. So we would be cast, you'd have to go to a casting company and be cast for a spot. You'd read into a, back then tape recorder, and they'd say, here, you're playing so-and-so, and you do the spot, and they'd have maybe 20, 30 guys like me reading into the thing, and then they would pick somebody, and then you'd go to a different studio and record it. And sometimes, of course, they'd come to my studio and do it. So it doesn't work that way anymore. So back then, it was a nice little tight market. Now, with digital, anybody in the country, quite frankly, in the world, is cast for spots. So you might think you did a good take for a local store, but maybe somebody from Oklahoma did for less money, or they were better. So it definitely changed. So suddenly the work is really spread out a lot more now. So there's not as much work. So lately, I don't think there's much that I've done. I do a few things. My latest one, sorry, it's not a big one, but it was the Camping and Expo show. That was just a couple months ago. So I still do that. But I did a lot of spots for help wanted ads. I still do those. Let me see, Sullivan Tire. I used to do some things for the Boston Bruins. I did a lot of work for. But yeah, it was a lot, and it wasn't just local. It was also regional and some national work. But again, it was fun though.
Was it always something you wanted to pursue, the voiceover work?
No, again, I thought when I was younger I wanted to be a DJ, like the old man. But again, as DJing changed on the air live and became more about just playing the music, and we used to have to read cards rather than, again, that wasn't very creative. I was looking for more creative outlet, and reading your easy favorite hits of yesterday and today wasn't very creative. So, and by the way, we weren't picking the music either by then. By the 80s, in the 70s, we still got to pick our music a little bit, DJs did. But by the 80s, it was all printed out on a computer sheet. This is the song you play in this order. So it just wasn't as much fun or creative. So that's when I started to get into voiceover work. I had some training in theater in high school and in college. So I did some theater. So I felt like I could combine my theater training with my announcing training and do some voiceover work, and it worked.
Sure. And so with your own company, with Chart Productions, did you hire yourself?
Sure, of course.
That kind
That's the idea. Yeah, sure. We did a lot of that as well. But again, sometimes we'd do it ourselves, and somebody would just say, "Hey, we need a spot done," and I'd do it. So there was a little bit of that too, right? Exactly. So that kind of work would be done where you just do it. Again, a lot of the clients we did a lot of work for don't even exist anymore. Times have changed. You don't remember a store called Ski Market, but there were 11 ski markets in the area in the old days, and again in the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s. And we did their radio for many years. So that was an ad that I did for a long time. And that was an account of ours. We always did it. We produced it in our shop, and I did the VO for it. Yeah.
And you do audiobooks? That piqued my interest. I'm an audiobook person.
Yeah, and that's something we got involved in a long time ago. In the mid 80s, it was called Books on Tape. Isn't that cute? They were on cassettes. And Prentice Hall, which is a publisher in Boston, hired us to do some books on tape back in the mid 80s. And we started to get involved in that. And I did a few books then, but it faded out a little bit. And then, of course, came back strong. So when it came back strong, we got involved because we had some experience in it. So now that it's digital and streaming, we do quite a bit. We do some of our the reading ourselves, but a lot of authors come into our studio and record their own books. So we produce a lot of books that way as well. It's fun. It's something I really enjoy. It's different. It's nothing that I thought I'd enjoy, but it is fun to produce a book. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's been an interest of mine, if not just voice acting, or at least audiobook recording kind of stuff. I've had that interest myself, but I'm also, I like writing, and so think about future plans.
Yeah,
I have a contact.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's quite easy. As a matter of fact, audiobooks is still a way that people can get into voiceover work if it's something they think they want to do. There are ways online if you can set up a little recording studio in your house, which again in the old days was impossible, and now is very possible. But if you can set up a decent recording setup in your house, you can do books online through Amazon, for instance, and you can basically you do it for free, but get paid as the book sells. You get a little piece of the action, if you will. This is a great way for new people to start in the industry, to see if they like it. You still have to be cast, and the author will pick somebody, but often there are authors out there who they don't have books with a lot of sales, so you're not going to make a ton of money, but it could be a way to break into the business and at least get a few dollars and see what it feels like and sounds like.
Oh, that's good to know.
All right, well, you get in touch with me, I'll set you up.
I'll definitely take that in. Thank you for that.
All right.
And so you also have your own family. You have a wife and kids and grandkids?
Sure. All of the above, yeah, sure. I've got 3 kids and 4, almost 5 grandkids.
Almost 5.
It'll be 5 in August.
Oh, so soon.
Yeah. So my youngest daughter, pregnant with her first.
Oh, congratulations to her.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
so
so excited about that. Yeah, so ranging in ages from the oldest is 6. I have 6, 4, 2, 1, and 1 on the way.
Oh, yeah. I love kids.
Yeah,
so
they're
cute.
great. They're great.
So do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything on the side?
What time do I have for hobbies? Not much. Not much at all. I play the guitar a little bit bad. I play badly, just well enough for church. And so in my previous church when we lived in Milton, that's the only place where they let me play. It was a no-cut contemporary choir. So, but when we moved here, I pretty much stopped doing it. I wasn't good enough anyway. So that was a hobby, but basically now it's whatever free time I have, I'm doing, I try to spend it with the kids and grandkids.
Sure.
I am doing some writing as well. I'm doing some textbook writing.
Oh,
so
I'm
writing a media law. I'm writing 2 chapters of a media law textbook for a national publisher. So that's fun.
How long did it take you to get your degree?
It took forever. No, I went a regular law degree full time is 3 years. I went nights, so it was 4 years nights.
Oh wow.
Right. So but it's a little bit of work. It's a little bit of work, but I was young, and that's the time to do it.
Do you still employ any part of your law degree in daily life? Yeah,
yes. Up until somewhat recently, I still did some legal work. I had some clients that, when I started working full time at Curry, I cut way back on the law practice, but still had some clients, some long-term projects that were going on. And sometimes I still have a couple of friends who have law firms who will, when things are busy, they might call me to do a little bit of work. So
interesting.
So I'm still a member of the bar. I pay my dues every year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just in case something comes up, I'm ready.
All right, so you have a family life, little time for hobbies, and you have so many jobs going on.
Right.
Do you have anything that you particularly enjoy, say, the most? I mean, I'm not going to put family life in there. I mean, I want to believe that family will come first, but,
Well, I mean, the only other, I guess I do have a hobby, don't I? I do theater still. I do community theater, right. And of course, I'm on the Cultural Council here in Foxborough, so that keeps me busy.
Yes.
So I do have the artsy side a little bit, and so when we moved to Foxborough 5 years ago, I wanted to get involved. It was just, COVID was just starting, and so right as soon as COVID was over, I saw an ad, I think it was on Facebook. The Foxborough Cultural Council was looking for people to join. I thought, oh, well, that'd be fun. Get a little into the arts. So we've had a great time there, and I've met a lot of folks in Foxborough. I'm currently the chair of that council, and it's fun. And we put together last year, as most people in Foxborough know, the Foxes in the borough idea. So this came out of our council, where we wanted to do a public art project. Foxborough, no matter who you talk to, you mention Foxborough, they only think stadium. Nothing wrong with it. We all love the stadium.
Very
we all
true.
love the pets.
Very true.
But the town has a lot more going on, as those of us who live here know.
They do.
And we thought it would be nice to have some public art that the folks in town could see and kind of remind them about what a nice place we live. So that was the thought. We had a couple of ideas. We bounced around and landed on a fox for obvious reasons. That kind of made sense. And so we got 5 fiberglass foxes, and you've seen them in town.
Yep.
They're very tall. They're about 5.5, 6 feet tall. So they're
big.
large foxes. And we got local artists to come up with ideas to paint them. And we got about 70 suggestions,
Oh my God.
of which we picked 5. And we had an art council. I'm not the visual arts guy. We had actual artists, thankfully, on our council who helped choose. We all voted. We voted on their slate the way they picked it, and I think they picked a good slate. These 5 foxes were outstanding. The
fantastic.
artists were outstanding. They were so easy to work with, and we were all amazed. Even though we were involved in it from the very beginning. Every time I drive by them, I'm amazed at how great they look.
Me too.
I'm still amazed. I say, son of a gun, that thing looks great.
Do you have a favorite one if you can choose?
Well, I think Fabulous Mr. Fox, which is the pop art one in front of the
MRPC, yeah.
The theater. I can call it the theater. I know. And as it turns out, I didn't know this at the time. It was done by a friend of mine.
Howie Green.
Howie Green. I've known Howie Green for about 30, 40 years from back in the day, well, 30 probably, when we were doing advertising for some of those accounts. I mentioned the ski market and some other accounts. And sometimes we would hire Howie Green to do some artwork for us.
He's
some
fantastic.
Illustration. He's an amazing artist. And I didn't know until it was done and chosen, and I saw it, and I saw the name Howie Green signed on the thing. I said,
way.
My Howie Green?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I didn't know it at all. But that'll be my favorite because I know Howie, and it's so colorful, and it's in a magnificent spot there in front of the Maryland Rodman Center, and it's just really, it's a beautiful piece of art. But they're all great. I mean, the amount of work this took, it's just, they're really amazing. The artist spent so much time.
Oh my goodness.
They took so much pride in their work.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think the town is just lucky to have them. We're all lucky to see them every day driving around town.
Oh yeah. Mossy, I swear every single time I see it, I see something new on the one that's the Fox over at Town Hall.
Yep, right in front of Town Hall. And that one, of course, if you haven't yet, next time you see Mossy, get on your hands and knees and crawl underneath Mossy.
Yes.
Because there are hidden little worlds under there.
Yes.
Magnificent. No, the artists were all so good and did such, as I say, they really paid attention to detail.
Oh, absolutely.
So Better Together, which is one at the Y, done with a million little dots. I don't know how long.
Oh my goodness, the
must that have taken?
Oh my goodness, all the intricate circle work and the dots within the dots.
Yeah,
and
it's when you get up real close to that one and see the work that went on into it. So no, we are so happy how they turned out, and I think the town is happy too.
The one at the Boyden Library, of course, also is glow in the dark, as the snowflakes are
Snowflake,
glow
I think it's called, right?
snowflake.
Yeah, and that's again beautiful, and the glow in the dark. If you see it, it looks great.
Oh, it's beautiful. I did the pictures for the community bulletin board here on the FCA channels. So I got all down and dirty and took those close-ups and
they're beautiful.
And interviewed all the via email all the
we're very
artists.
happy with how they came out. Yeah,
they were seriously so fantastic. You all did a great job with choosing these artists.
So the real problem is, how do we top that?
I know, really. How do you top that?
I'm gonna have to quit. Let the next council worry about that. But we'll see. We've got some ideas.
So the goal is with the Foxes, though, is to sell them.
Right,
in a couple years.
Right, the original plan was a couple of years down the road to auction them off, and that's still the plan. But there has been some buzz because people love these and they don't want them to leave.
They do.
So we are discussing possible alternatives.
Okay.
As we speak, just discussing. We don't know what they might be, but maybe just extending where they are for a little while.
Okay.
We need to talk to the people, of course, who have them now in front of their property. I mean, maybe they won't work there. So there are lots of things we need to do. So I'm not putting pressure on anybody, but you want to make a little news on the show. We're at least wondering if it's possible to keep them there a little bit longer because it would only be one more year. I think folks want them to stay a little longer. So that's what we feel anyway.
They're such a joy in the town.
Yeah.
Seriously, anytime you see them, it's instant smiles.
Well, we had mugs made up with all of the Foxes. We'll be selling them around town, so you see them at the farmers market, and you'll see them on Founders Day. And so,
just about to ask,
if you want to purchase a mug with your favorite Fox, keep an eye out. We'll have them out. They're available now. They're all sitting in my garage, so I can't wait to sell them.
Well, we have that to look forward to because we have Founders Day coming up very soon.
So we'll be selling some mugs. So find us at Founders Day. We'll have a tent. We'll be selling the mugs.
All right. Thank you so much, Ken, for
Welcome.
coming on to The Ordinary Extraordinary. It's been wonderful talking to you today.
It's been nice talking to you too. Have we discussed that you were a student at Curry College?
Very basically, but you know, I was a student here at Curry, and or there at Curry. I did graduate a year ago, so but I am I'm very glad that I got my communication degree at Curry, and that I met you there.
Yes.
So it's
It's great. It really, what I like about teaching at Carberry for the most part is really the relationships. It's a small school, and we know all of our students. And so you know that you could pick up the phone or send me an email and say, hey, how would you like to come on my show? Because we knew each other, because we went, it's a small school.
Right.
We have that kind of a personal touch, especially in the communication department. So that's one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching there. I wasn't sure how long I'd stay, quite frankly. I thought it was just filling in a gap because somebody retired quickly and they needed somebody to jump in. I said, I'll do it for a couple of years. It's been 4 years, and I'm really enjoying the relationship with the students, so I don't want to leave now.
I do know, because I have a friend that you worked very close with, that you do a great job helping out the students in radio. Yeah,
the job doesn't stop at the end of when the people graduate. As a matter of fact, I think it really starts then. My connections in the industry, I try to get people jobs. If they've got a job and they have questions, I want them to know they can always call me or email me. They all have my cell phone number. As a matter of fact, a lot of teachers thought I was crazy, but I give all my students my cell phone number and say, if you have a problem, any problem, call me, text me, and they do. Nobody's abused it yet, but I'm happy to help them out. I think that's the obligation. I don't teach statistics. Nothing wrong with teaching statistics. I know the people who teach, very nice. But this is what I teach is more involved with, trying to get a job, knowing people. You have to know some folks in the industry. So I tell them, at least you know me, and I know people, and we can make those connections. So I think that's part of my job. Yeah, I was having one of my professors I worked with more often. He was trying to help me with publishing my capstone. Right. So I attribute a lot of my success to the professors at Curry College. Are all fantastic. Oh, great. Thank you.
So again, thank you very much for coming on to The Ordinary Extraordinary. I really have enjoyed this conversation way too much. We were talking for so long beforehand. We started so much later than I was anticipating, but we were just having such a good conversation. So thank you again, Ken, for coming onto the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm your host, Jen Krensman, and this has been The Ordinary Extraordinary on Foxboro Cable Access. Stay safe out there.